So this project started way back in 2014 when, unfortunately, the very first case of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, was described in a rugby player in Ireland. And from that time, from looking at that case, we discovered that the small blood vessels in the brain of this individual who sadly passed away and had CTE, discovered post-mortem, the tiny blood vessels in the brain were disrupted. In fact, they were actually leaky. So we were able to discover that there was blood-based proteins actually in the brain that should have been in the blood. So the so-called blood-brain barrier, or BBB, was disrupted. And this started a project that we thought maybe we could analyse the blood-brain barrier, the integrity of these blood vessels in life, in individuals who are exposing themselves to repetitive head trauma in the context of combat and collision sports. So that started a project that lasted probably about 4 years from 2014 onwards, culminating in a paper in 2020, where we discovered that players who are engaged in competitive rugby, elite level rugby, but also mixed martial arts, that when they exposed themselves to this repetitive head trauma, the blood vessels in their brain were becoming leaky. And we were able to see this using very, very advanced MRI-based tools called Dynamic Contrast Enhanced MRI, or DCMRI. So we published that paper back in 2020. And it started this idea that maybe if we were to go to elite athletes who had retired from their sports and were then experiencing problems, mental health problems, neurological problems, psychiatric problems, if we did the same scans in those individuals, would we be able to detect similar blood-brain barrier disruption and similar leakiness of their brain? Because unfortunately at the moment, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, in life there are very, very few biomarkers or ways that we can actually analyse what is happening in the brains of these individuals. So for the first time ever, this has given us a clue that by looking at the integrity of the blood-brain barrier in individuals who might be at high risk for developing CTE, we may be able to actually diagnose this condition in life and give more information back to those participants who've engaged in these sports.
So our study shows that the brain still carries the scars of contact sport injuries many years after individuals have finished their playing career. We found that there was disruption to the integrity of the blood-brain barrier in these individuals, and this is the protective lining of the blood vessels in the brain that normally shields them from harmful substances. This occurred as many as 20 to 30 years after these players had finished their individual careers, showing that this isn't just an acute injury phenomenon, but it's actually a chronic long-term change to how the brain actually works and how it functions. Importantly, this wasn't actually predicted by the number of concussions that an individual had sustained during their playing career. Instead, it suggests that it's the cumulative burden of repetitive head injuries over many years that is resulting in these long-term changes to the brain and to the prevalence of cognitive decline in these individuals.
You know, I think it's pretty uncontroversial at this point to assert that banging your head in trauma is not good for your brain. We know that. What we now know from the studies we've been doing to date and the most recent study is that individual concussions are not good, but they are not the problem. It's the recurrent injuries that people are getting every time they play a full game or a full game of practice. And these amount to thousands over a career. So some player might remember 5, 6, 7, 8 concussions in their career, but they've actually suffered thousands of subconcussive blows, which they're not feeling symptoms from. So what we've learned now is that not only is that bad for the brain, and our previous work showed the blood-brain barrier dysfunction in those players, we are now looking at retired players. The average retirement was 12 years, and we're still seeing the dysfunction in the brain. We're still seeing a brain that's inflamed. On the preventative side, which is really the domain of public health, it's how can we reduce the impact of recurrent brain injury, both in our athletes and in every other cause of recurrent brain injury. And I don't think this is a problem that can be solved by an individual sport, an individual code, an individual governing body. If you think about the major public health initiatives that save lives in countries across the world, it's government taking a multi-dimensional approach with agencies, yes, players, experts, scientists, citizens, bringing them together and deciding here's a series of things that we need to do to reduce the impact of this. It will not be solved simply by the sport themselves.
It is critical for the retired players, because if they read the papers and keep up to date on their sport, they'll find the large numbers of cases of traumatic encephalopathy, which was described by others, which is the end point and the most worrying aspect of the brain trauma. And secondly, now many of them, because they're aware of this due to the litigation in the UK, where there are 1,100 players taking legal action, that they're aware of the risk they're running, and like all good sportsmen, they turn their other cheek and decide not to actually take it too seriously, because there's always the philosophy for the individual that it's not going to be me. But I think the situation in rugby over the past 5 or 6 years, and certainly over the last decade, where the sizes have increased and the contact forces have multiplied, not just increased, we all shudder when we see the contacts in sport. I had been involved in World Rugby and was involved with others in drawing up guidelines, which was the first step, having got a consensus statement on concussion, which was produced by representatives of all the sporting bodies, all of them, including Olympic Council. And but they were just guidelines, and since that time the game has got more physical, more traumatically physical. Players are bigger, and physicality seems to be the dominant theme. So we set up about 2 years ago an advocacy group, and we came back to bother Professor Doherty again. And I have always felt, and he agrees with me, that this should not be handled other than by the experts in the field of neurology. It has to be the experts, the scientists and the clinicians.